Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Good evening, everybody. Hey, it's Cutler here on the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk to Cutler vlog, Let's Talk to Cutler program. And you all know I show up every Tuesday and Thursday trying to offer some motivation, trying to offer some inspiration, trying to give us an opportunity to chit chat and see how we can show up a little bit better tomorrow than we did today. It doesn't mean that today was a flop. It doesn't mean that today was a failure. It does not mean that today was all bad. It simply means that we're taking the time to see, how can I improve myself tomorrow? How can I show up as a better version of me? How can I reinvent myself just for the next day? You know, you ought to try to reinvent yourself every single day. Now, I'm going to put you all on notice. We're going to do word guard today. I'm just telling you all this off the cuff. We're doing word guard. And should I go ahead and tell you which letter we're going to use? Do you all want to know which letter we're going to use? Let me know while I just keep talking for just a moment. So I could tell those, if they're just coming by for the very first time, if they're just sailing on by my channel, you know, we're inviting them to stop for about 1,800 seconds to let them know that we're talking about motivation. We're talking about inspiration. We're talking about hope and showing up better, because there's enough bad news out there already. There's enough depressing news. There's enough gloomy and all that kind of news out there. So this is our opportunity to escape for just a moment. I don't know about you all, but every now and then, at some segment of the day, at some portion of the day, I need to be able to escape. And I'll be very transparent with you all this evening. I really do need this moment to escape. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why, because, you know, the last time we talked, maybe a couple of times ago, I just confessed and said, listen, guys, I am overwhelmed. And I told you all, and I didn't necessarily tell you why, but you might be able to guess from the theme of tonight's or this evening's discussion. I am dedicating this evening to my Aunt DeeDee. Last week, when I was sharing with you all that I am overwhelmed, it was because, if the truth be told, my aunt was suffering. She has brain cancer, and she was suffering at the time and in the last stages of it. And earlier this week, Monday, she made her peaceful transition. So that was what I was dealing with, and my family, we've been dealing with it. You know, so please keep us in your thought and prayers. And this evening, I want to dedicate our conversation to my beautiful Aunt DeeDee, who made her transition. But again, we are all dealing with so many things. I get the chance on this end to share with you what I'm dealing with. And I hope that you have somebody in your life that you can chit chat and that you can talk to, and you can share with them what is going on in your life. Because how many of us remember that one of those very first moments that we talked about, we said we have to learn to give our emotions a voice. And we have to let people know when we're experiencing things. And we have to let people know when we are dealing with things and when we feel consumed by so many things. So make sure that you have people in your space and people who are in your circle who know how to recognize when you are dealing with things. It's like someone who's drowning. Think about it. When someone is drowning, their heads are below the water. And many times the only thing you see is their hand that comes up, and their hand may give a signal that says, I need help. They're not always able to articulate with their mouth what's going on. So for goodness sake, let us be the people who have folk and people in our spaces who recognize our cries and our signals for help, to say, hey, I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I'm drowning here. So I tell you what I'm going to do. My aunt's name is Melissa. I called her for all of my life, Aunt DeeDee. So tonight's, that's what we'll do. So as we're going tonight, when we do word guard, we're going to use the letter D. So see, I've given you a heads up to let you know that near the end of our conversation, we're going to use the letter D. Now, just in case you're wondering, what is word guard and what did it mean, the letter D? Word guard for us Word guard for us is when we use positive words to describe ourselves and to describe the people who are in our lives. Word guard is when we take a moment to speak positivity over our lives and over everybody and everything that is connected to us. And so every now and then, from time to time, we'll just start spouting out those words. You call out some words, I'll call out some words, and we are sharing positivity and speaking positivity over ourselves. All right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the letter D. Now, we've been reading from this book right here, When I Am Overwhelmed, How to Handle Life at Its Most Intense Moments. We are all having. We are all having, or if we are not having, we have had. If you have not had, live long enough, and you will have some intense moments. So we're hanging in there. My family, we're hanging in there, and we're doing what we can to get by. And I want to thank you all for sharing this time and this space with me. So later this evening, we're going to do word guard, and we're going to use the letter D. Thank you all so much for sending your kind thoughts and your kind comments to me and my family. I appreciate that. But listen, let me shout out the LTTC VIPs for just a moment. If you're just stopping by, let me tell you, the LTTC VIPs are the very important people. Now, they all are, but it's typically those people who just sort of jump into the chat first, the first 3 people who jump into the chat. So I want to acknowledge them and say a special hi to Tracy Johnson, who says, hey, everyone, ready for the ride. I hope you all are ready, because as Tracy's indicated, this is a ride. We're riding down the highway of life. And I've got something to say tonight. I hope I have something to say every night, but I have something to say tonight, you all, about sharing the riches of your life. When I tell you this segment is I believe in divine inspiration and divine timing and divine guidance. I believe in the providence of God. And so I find it quite interesting that as I talk about sharing the riches of your life, it is this evening that I'm going to talk about that, and it's so appropriate for me to talk about that and dedicate this segment to my aunt. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. Let's go on. Let's see. After Tracy, Sonia Bailey says, hey to everybody. If you all remember, as I shouted out Women's History Month, and I talked about the women entrepreneurs who were here with me and who were following and in the chat, that is attorney Sonia Bailey down in Atlanta. So, and I shared her information. Now, you all call her. You need an excellent attorney, give her a call. And then I want to shout out to my good friend, Paula D. How are you, my friend? Paula D says, hello, everyone. So I'm so thankful for those VIPs, those LTTC VIPs this evening. I'm thankful for all of you, but of course, I just had to shout them out. We're reading again from this book, When I Am Overwhelmed, How to Handle Life at Its Most Intense Moments. If you want the book, that's fine. Please go ahead and run over to Amazon.com and get it. Search for me. It's over there. And we're going to read from chapter 9 this evening. Chapter 9 is about sharing your heart and your hand. And you will see that as I talk about sharing your heart and your hand, it is important to me that we do something that's tangible, that we make ourselves available to give of ourselves. Let's make ourselves available to give of our. That is what my aunt did all of her life. And so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But it is so important. I often think, and maybe you all can identify with this, I often think about times when people will have an event. They may have a birthday party, a function, or some sort of social gathering. And sometimes people will say, well, what do you want me to bring? Tell me if this is you, if you've ever been the person who did this or the person who heard this. Sometimes people will have an event and you invite folk. And they say, well, what do you want me to bring? You say to them, I don't want you to bring anything. All I want you to bring is you. Anybody ever heard that other than me? I don't want you to bring anything. All I want is for you to be there. May I tell you that your presence is truly a gift in somebody's life? Many times we don't know what to say when people are overwhelmed, but may I suggest to you this evening that your presence alone is much more of a gift than you can ever imagine. Your presence brings with you all of the warmth that you possess. It brings the wisdom of the ages. It brings the strength of the years. And when you show up, learn how to be present, learn how to show up with all of that. And many times just showing up will diffuse someone else's overwhelming state, their overwhelming sense of being, just your presence alone. So think about it. I often think about children of divorce, children of separated parents. And I'm thinking small children who may sometimes say to mommy or daddy, depending upon who they're with, and they may call the other parent and say, well, what do you want me to send you? I don't want you to send me anything. I just want you to come. I just want you to show up. Right? So a lot of times people just want you to show up, and you show up however you can, and you show up intentionally, and you show up and you give your attention, and you show up and remind them that they matter. You want to talk about how to diffuse and ease someone when they are overwhelmed. It's your presence that will do it. Your presence alone will pierce the darkness of somebody else's experience. Your presence, your presence alone will pierce the darkness of someone else's experience. And so you and I always come with an offering, and sometimes I'm not quite sure what the offering is going to be until I start talking and start just articulating. May I suggest to you that my offering tonight is the power to recognize what you hold in your hand and in your heart. Because many times we would downplay the gifts that we have inside of us. Just before this segment aired, just before the segment began tonight, I was having a conversation with my brother. And I was telling him that his ability for my family in this moment, his ability to make us laugh sometimes just eases our minds, it soothes our conscience, it massages our hearts. So I said to him, brother, don't ever take your gift for granted. Always treasure your ability to do what you do. And may I say that to you all tonight. Always treasure your ability to uniquely do what you do. So live unapologetically. I know we hear that phrase all the time, but I mean it from my heart tonight. Live unapologetically with all that you have, with all that you do, with who you are, and with all that you can be. Live unapologetically and show up in somebody's life, just as you want them to show up for yours. All right, so what I want to talk about tonight is in chapter 9. And it says, share your heart. Share your heart and share your hand. Let me read and follow along with me if you have the book. And again, if you don't, I tell you, you don't have to have the book to join the conversation. It helps because it's quite dynamic. I'm beginning on page 87 of the book. Share your heart and your hand. Wherever you are in life, others will tread. Wherever you are going in life, others have been. Learn to share the riches of your life's journey. There is a reward in the form of peace of mind and contentment for all of the times that you help somebody else along their journey. As overwhelming as life can be and possibly has been for you, it can affect others the same way. Think about that. Whatever you're going through, someone else may share that experience. And wherever you're going, someone else has already been there. Think about that. Everyone wants to know what to do and where to go when they are overwhelmed. And while love and support are soothing, it sometimes helps to see, hold, touch, or hear something to remind us about our worth, our value, and our inner strength. To this end, I encourage you to share your heart, and to the extent possible, share your hand as well. You may not always be physically present. I know sometimes we try to get there, we try to be there, we try to show up, but life happens and we can't always make it to everything. We can't always get there. We can't always be there in that physical space. So that's why I say, to the extent that you can, share your hand as well. You may not always be physically present to serve as a source of strength, but a tangible reminder, hang on, you all, a tangible reminder will serve as that space from your heart where you stood in solidarity and offered hope. You have the ability to offer people hope when they are going through. You have the power to give them the ability to expect that things are going to get better. You have the wherewithal to cause them to see that change is coming. You have this uncanny knack to show people that, listen, where you are now is not where you're going to stay. There's a space and a place that's called better, my sister, my brother, my friend, that you will get to. And it is my responsibility to help you get there. Let's be that for other people. All right. So then you have the ability and the power to offer hope. I get it. And so sometimes I say, let's give them something to remind them that I'm standing with you in solidarity. Sometimes we have to remind people, I'm standing there in solidarity with you. And even if I can't be there with you, let me give you something to remind you that I'm just trying to offer you a little hope. All right. So here's what I say about the thing that you give someone. It may pale in comparison to your presence, but sometimes what's crafted by the hands will remind us of what was conceived in the heart. Cutler, where does that come from? Where does that statement come from to say what's crafted by the hands will remind us of what is conceived in the heart? I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from my experience. It comes from me thinking about my family. It comes from me thinking about my ancestors, because it was not that we were rich. It was not that we were very wealthy. But one of the things that I so accurately recall about my ancestors, about the people in my past, about the people upon whose shoulders I stand, was that although we did not have money, there was some degree of wealth, because we learned to still give. We learned to still share. The women in my family, they would bake and they would give pies. And if they couldn't give anything, they would bake and they would give cakes and cookies and all of those sorts of things. They would make quilts and they would make scarves and they would make hats. And that is what they would do. I often remember my aunt. My aunt DeeDee was such a loving person, and people loved her cooking. And so many times, well, thank you, Tracy. Yes, we may not be rich with money, but we can be rich with love. And as I think about my aunt DeeDee, there were many times when people just wanted her to show up, and she never showed up empty-handed, but she would show up with one of her famous cakes or one of her famous pies. I would always ask her, can you make me a coconut pie? Can you make me a pecan pie? And she willingly did it. And she did it from her heart. And so many people experienced that part about her, because she learned that the gifts that she possessed in her hand were just not hers. They weren't hers to have and keep selfishly, but she shared them. And so that is the platform from which I speak when I say share what's in your hand. Because what is often made by your hand will speak of what was conceived in your heart. And she did it. Thank you, T. Cutler. You know her. She did it with love. And people know when you've poured love into what you do. And as a matter of fact, so the women in my family would do that. And they were great. There were some men who were great cooks, and they would do the same thing. But I often think about the gentlemen in my family. Do you all know what whittling is? Sometimes they would just take their knife and they would sit there and they would get a piece of wood and they would whittle until they carved something. I told y'all I grew up in the country. Some of y'all don't know anything about this, but they would whittle until they carved something. And they would give it to the little boys in the family. And we would hold on to those things, or just the gift of teaching us how to whittle. They would do that. And sometimes they would make bows and arrows. They would get a limb out of a tree and get a piece of string and bend it so many degrees until it was kind of taut and tight. And then they would actually make the arrows. They would get a tree stem and they would just whittle it down. This is country. I'm telling you, I remember all this. And they would take a bottle cap and they would bend the bottle cap around the tree. And so that became the metal part of the front of the arrow. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. It was just my experience. Some of y'all don't know about that country living, but that's what they would do. So they would make bows and arrows. And not only would they make bows and arrows, they would make slingshots. We couldn't always afford to buy them, but the men in my family, they would do that. And they showed us how to do it. So they would get a tree limb that had a Y in it. And then they would get the inner tube of a tire, cut the inner tube and tie it to both sides so that we can pull it back and turn it into a slingshot. They would make fishing poles. So Tracy Johnson, you're right. So I guess we really were rich with love, because the things that they crafted by their hands reflected what was conceived in their hearts. That's all I'm saying. Learn how to share. Learn how to share the riches of your life. You don't always have to give money, but there are riches that you can give. I go on to talk and read from chapter 9, where I said we are constantly admonished in life and even in the scripture to treat people like we want to be treated. This is the gist of what has often been referred to as the golden rule. When Jesus was asked to identify the greatest commandment of the law, he told the disciples to love the Lord with their heart, soul, and mind. But he told them that the next greatest commandment was to love thy neighbors as themselves. This principle, the principle that is embedded in this scripture, is the catalyst behind what we call random acts of kindness. How many of you all are really into random acts of kindness? I love random acts of kindness. You get to the drive-through, you pay for yours, and you pay for the car behind yours. It's just that kind of thing that will make someone's day, that will lift the heavy burden, that will soothe some of the gloom and the doom that they're going through. Share what's in your hand. Share what's in your heart. Share the riches of your life. And again, that's why I come offering you the power to see power to recognize what's in your hand and in your heart. Sometimes we don't stop and take a look and see, what can I share? What can I give? What can I do? How can I help? What can I give? What can I do? How can I help? I don't have a lot. Stand in the mirror and look at yourself and say, here's what I can offer. There's something I can give. There's something I can do. There's some way that I can make a difference in somebody's life. We often hear and we often sing the song, if I can help somebody as I pass along. And again, that was the sentiment of my aunt's life. If I can just help somebody as I pass along, what really gives my life value is helping other people. And that was the mantra of my aunt's life. You all do know that I have tissue on board. I made sure tonight that I was just, listen, I had to get everything that I needed. I talked to my oldest brother, I told you, because he brings the comedy. I talked to my first cousins, who I love as my sisters and brothers. I haven't even talked about having tea lately, but I brought my tea. I had to bring everything that would help me share this space without breaking down too much. I'm telling you, let's just learn to share what is in our hands, because it often reminds people of what is in your heart. It truly does. So this whole principle of loving your neighbor as yourself, that is the gist behind random acts of kindness. And they're done just to make someone smile. They're done to add a smile to someone's day. Take a moment today, take a moment this week, you all. Just take a moment to do something tangible that is indicative of a space from your heart. And not only will the recipient be less overwhelmed by life, but so will you. I told you it was always my aunt's joy. It was always her delight to put a smile on somebody's face. And she didn't necessarily do what she did just to hear them say thank you, but she did what she did because she loved doing it. She loved putting a smile on somebody's face. You didn't have to applaud her that much. A thank you was kind because it was courteous and the right thing to do. But she did not want you to dote on her and go on and on and on. But she did it for the joy of just adding something to somebody's life. That's the kind of person she was. All right. And so I go on to say in this book, I am convinced that when you share spaces from your heart, you have fewer pieces that can become overwhelmed by the negative stimulants in life. I've already mentioned that when I turned 50, I wrote a poem to celebrate my milestone, and I shared that with you all. And what I realized was, I later realized that people enjoyed my writing, people enjoyed my poems. And another friend later turned 50. I believe it was the next year. It's in my book. A friend turned 50 the next year. And in a casual conversation, I'll get back to the book, in a casual conversation, I recognized in her the same emotional roller coaster, moments of introspection and anxieties about being a good steward of time that I had undergone the previous year. So what did I do? The same way I wrote a poem for myself when I turned 50, I took out a pen and I decided to share the riches of my life. I decided to share something from my hands, Many of you have the ability to make people smile, the ability to make people laugh with so many things that you do. Whether it's knitting, whether it's making bow ties, whether it's sewing, whether it's making t-shirts, whether it's baking cakes, whether it's showing up, it doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's giving your ear, you have people, you have the ability to diffuse people and to ease them when they are overwhelmed. It's not always about money, but many times it is the other things that you can give that just will remind them, I'm here for you. I'm here with you. That is why when I was growing up, I used to love receiving mail. So guess what? As an adult, I love receiving greeting cards. You want to make my day during the holidays, and my family and friends know this. I hope they know it. If they don't, you all tune in and watch the replay. I love receiving holiday cards. I love, 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 love receiving holiday cards because it simply says to me, I was thinking about you. People will call me all the time and they say, well, Cutler, what do you want? What do you need? And I'll say, I really can't think of anything that I want. And God has supplied all of my needs. But what I love cards. And so every now and then they will hear it. And my house over the holidays tends to be flooded with cards because it says to me, I'm thinking about you. Do you not know people like to be thought about? They like to know that they matter to somebody. Listen, even if I just matter for the 15 seconds or the 1 minute that it took you to write the card and address the envelope, put the stamp on it and drop it in the mail, it lets me know that I matter to somebody. And so why do I spend this time? Because I know what I enjoy and I hope that I'm able to give that to somebody else. I hope that I'm able to offer you a reminder that you matter. I hope I'm able to offer you a moment to reflect and you say, I'm not an all bad person, but there's good in me, there's virtue in me, there's power in me, there's something in me that's worth having. All right. So what I want to do now, because you all know I only have 1,800 seconds and you all are trying to get me to go on and on and on and on. But listen, the next time I come up here, I'll read this poem. Because what I did, I realized you have to realize the gifts that you possess. And I would downplay it. I used to downplay it. People said, oh, you do such a good job writing poetry. And I would cower and say, thank you. Because I did not know how to, let me just go here for a minute. I did not know how to stand in the strength of the gifts that God had given me. And so I would cower and I would feel like I had to offer this kind of humility to downplay what God himself had given me. But I realized it is an insult to the Creator not to recognize what he has given you. And so now when people say, you write so well, my thank you is, thank you, God. I appreciate you, my friend, my sister, my brother, for acknowledging it. But every time I appreciate you, I have to thank God. So I don't take light, I don't make small of the gifts, and don't you do it either. Don't cower and be afraid to stand in the strength of the gifts that God has given you. So I wrote those poems, and I think what I may do for Thursday's conversation is to merely share those poems with you. But let's go out by doing this, you all. I told you I'm going to dedicate this. This is dedicated to my Aunt DeeDee. And let's do word guard for just a moment. Let's go out by doing word guard. Let's speak positivity over our lives. Are you all ready? Yeah, yes, Yvonne. Stand in the gift. We all have to do that. You as well, my friend, of course, because you have the gift to make people smile. Your voice alone, your music, all those kinds of things. Y'all, we all have gifts. Let's use them. Let's use them. Let's go out by doing this. Let's speak positivity over ourselves. Positivity when it comes to word guard, you fill in an I am statement. I am blank. The blank has to be filled with the letter D. And speak positivity. So give me words, y'all. Let's do it. Words that begin with D. I am what? You all talk to me. Fill in the letter, fill it in with the letter D. And I'll go ahead and I'll start doing the same until I start seeing you all roll them across the screen. Just drop them in the chat. I am what? I am delightful. Absolutely. I am delightful. I'm a pleasant person. People enjoy hanging around me. Y'all talk to me. What about I am dedicated. I am committed. I know how to find a cause. I know how to stick to it. There you go. Here we go. Yes, they're coming through. I am determined. I don't give up easily. When I put my hands on something, I stick to it because I know how to make it happen. Yes, I like it. I have dignity. I have dignity and decency about myself. You're going to find me being respectful and respectable. I am diligent. I have stick-to-itness. I see through it. I am dedicated. I'm committed to what I do. I am divine. I love that I am divine. I am godlike in my own way. I'm sacred. I connect with the Creator Himself. I am divine. I am determined. I'm going to push forward. I'm not giving up. You all looked up these words and you did something and you got ready. All right. I am dependable. You can count on me because my word is bond. If I say it, I am going to do it. I'm decent. I'm a good person. I'm a good human being. I enjoy relating to my fellow man. I am decent. And so that's what I'm decent. I'm driven. I am driven because I'm motivated. I'm motivated to see through it. I'm motivated to get to the end. I'm motivated to finish the course. I'm driven. And many times I'm not necessarily driven by other people, but I'm self-driven. All right, my friend. That is funny. Sonia Bailey. All right, her D is doggone. All right, I'm going to take a doggone good friend. Listen, that is beyond comprehension. Just doggone is just good in country. It means, listen, beyond comprehensible. I am devout. Devout, listen, devout just means that I'm going to stick to it. Devout means that I'm intentional. Devout means that I am committed. Devout means that I am sincere in what I do. That's why there are people who are sincere with their religion. They are sincere with other things. I am daring. I don't mind going off the beaten path. I don't mind taking a chance every now and then. I don't mind doing something different. I am daring. And may I say about my aunt, my aunt would have been so many of these things: a decent person, a dedicated person, a delightful person, a dependable person, a different person, very unique. She understood how to walk in her own gifts. All of those things. She was driven, all of those, and divine. My aunt DeeDee, all of those things. I am dependent. You can depend on me. You can count on me. And I am deliberate. I don't do anything haphazardly. I don't do anything by circumstance or by happenstance, but I'm deliberate. I'm very intentional. I've learned how to live my life in purpose and on purpose. I want to thank you all so very much for sharing this segment, because that's what you did. You shared this segment. Thank you all so very much for your kind words and your thoughts and prayers for my family. I think I'll put up this last one. T. Cutler, you said it all. What a way for me to conclude. DeeDee was a devoted child of God. And we will. We'll miss her dearly. We will miss her dearly. All right. Thank you all. Listen, until the next time, you all, let's keep building community, maintaining connectivity. Keep your heads up, keep your hopes up. Stay safe, stay sane. Know that from my heart to yours, especially in moments like this, I say thank you. But there is so much love, always and will be. Good night, everybody. Take care.